pleasure to be joined now for a question and answer with Lawrence Hewson, aka the voice of Flinders Station. You might have seen him in action during your commute, I know I have. Or you might have seen him via social media. You may have heard him go viral, and you certainly would have heard him call us all to our seats today. Lawrence is an employee of Metro, but we've invited him here today in a personal capacity to share some of his experiences and answer some questions for us. Once again, you can submit some questions through the Pigeon app, and I'll get the conversation started. So, Lawrence, you must observe a great cross-section of our community coming through Flinders Station. Can you share with us some of those different user groups and how they experience the station differently?
Yeah, I think Flinders Street Station is an utterly fascinating place to work, and I have worked for many of the different start time shifts at Flinders. And so you sort of notice that there's two main peak hours. There's obviously your AM peak hour and your PM peak hour. One of those peak hours is a very well choreographed, organised and separated flow of people into the community, and the other is like watching a raccoon try and pack a dishwasher on crack. So in the mornings when I get on the train at like 5 AM, it is just a train, it is just tradies. It is all high vis. You walk on there, your retinas are incinerated in the first 30 seconds. You walk off with sunburn, like it's just all, some carry their toolboxes on there and others leave their stuff on site. And then that's just the first wave. The second wave is the hospitality staff and baristas that go out into the world and make our coffees. And then the next wave after that is many of the corporate and office workers and school students coming through the place. And then following that, you get a lot of your tourists, everyone from London to Warrnambool, you know, they walk out into the world like, yeah, let's go, I'm in Melbourne today, which is funny. And just help them get around from place to place. And then a lot of the disability support workers come out in the next wave, like around 10, 11 AM, taking their clients out for their day trips, whether it's down to the beach or over to Fed Square, wherever it is. Then a lot of the autistic teenage boys, like I used to be, go to the train station just to stare at trains for an hour, you know, over lunchtime, and then that's just how they like to spend their day. Quite frankly, I don't blame them. And then there's a 3-hour nice gap in the afternoon when not that much is happening, and then 3:30 hits. And it's everyone. Like, those waves have just gone to hell. There's no class distinction between who's there. There's a tradie there in high vis with a puddle of wet cement still in his arm, brushing up against a guy wearing a $980 suit. And then, of course, you know, seasonally, you have your footy crowds coming through from 7 PM onwards, and that can be, you know, it can be quite a tribal experience. Like, I mean, I'm from New South Wales. That is a passionate, you know, footy state in a different code, but you guys have turned that into something completely different. But yeah, you do get a widespread of all the different kind of sects of society that come through there. It is, as you would put it, a great level up.
So the commute can be a bit dreary, but I must admit I've experienced you at Flinders Station when someone's running late for a train and you tell them to lift their knees, and it's great. It really gives you that pep in your step, and it's like having an extra shot of coffee. So where do you get your energy, and how do you strive to make a difference for commuters?
Starts off with the extra shot of coffee and it also helps to have a bottomless pit expense account of ADHD. That definitely gets a blood money in the morning. But I've got two main functions on the platform. One of them is it's the mechanics of what I do. It's being the eyes and ears of the platform. It's, you know, I'm the first person to radio up to control if something goes wrong on the platform, and not just me, every platform announcer. You know, when I say they're the eyes and ears, I mean if someone jumps in the pit and decides to take a walk up the road, if someone drops an AirPod into the tracks and then they think they can fish it out themselves. That kind of thing is what slows the commute down. We are there to prevent that kind of thing from happening. We radio up, we try to get things happening like quick, smart, real snappy. So there's that side I try to do very well. Also, if there's a last minute platform change because, you know, something's happened on the line and we need to start putting, you know, platform 1 train through platform 2 or something, that's how we keep you guys on your toes, because a lot of you come through in a catatonic state after work. You don't want to deal with anything. You're on your phone, you're looking at the latest Purple Things video. But then the other side of it is the personability, which I think it's somewhat immeasurable. I don't think you can put a tangible financial cost on expense or cost on what it does to be personable like that in the mornings. But I think it creates a shared experience for people. Like Some of you might know the friendly tram driver, who's also a bit of an online sensation. There's a few tram drivers at Metro through the network who like to do a bit of commentary. You know, getting that energy up and talking to people that way creates that shared experience. I've been on that friendly tram driver's tram sometimes, and when he talks and everyone starts smirking at each other and winking at each other, and then it just takes one person to make a comment, and it can start a whole carriage worth of conversation, and everyone just chats. You know, and I've made those duration of the journey friendships, and you might never see that person ever again, but you walk into your day just chuffed with what just happened. Like, you just connected with people, and so I like facilitating that kind of thing, and I think a lot of the other platform announcers do as well, but obviously a lot of other people throughout the network. I've listened to tram stop announcers in the city like go to riff completely off script, and I'm just like, there we are, like a comrade, you know.
Fantastic. And so can you tell us a bit about some of those other announcers and how schedules fit together? I was talking to you earlier about your partner in crime at Parliament Station. So how does that work out?
Different train stations have different requirements. Flinders Street Station, obviously currently being the central point of the Melbourne rail network, soon to be somewhat decentralised by the suburban loop and the cross city loop. But Flinders requires platform announcers at both peak hours. So we do alternating shifts. I'll do an AM shift one week and then a PM shift next week, and then we just do. And we all swap over and we all get rostered through the different platforms throughout the week, just so that we never forget how one platform works. And, you know, because there are actually very sort of specific things, like you might have Parkdale Station that isn't open on the Frankston line for a while, and you have to remember to read that out, you know, as opposed to where I might be doing works on the Pakenham line, and so you've got to remember there's a replacement buses between Dandenong and Pakenham, but the Cranbourne line's working perfectly fine. Like, so we have to keep rostering throughout all the different platforms so that we're on the toes about what's happening at the network at various times. And the CIC, the Customer Service Office at Flinders Street Station, and all of the barrier staff that are out there, they have to be across this stuff as well. So in the mornings in the office, they put up a piece of paper with the occupations on it, and we all take a photo of that, and that lists out every work that might be happening through the network that day. That obviously doesn't include when there's a signal failure or something predictable like that. But if we try to be as across that stuff as possible, my bandmate Kat, you might have seen, works at Parliament Station. They don't have platform announcers during the full peak of the AM and the PM. They're mainly there for dwell time. I don't know if you know what dwell time is, but dwell time is the amount of time that a train sits at a platform. And if dwell times blow out, you know, what can start off as a 2-minute delay can 45 minutes later be an hour and a half delay on the line. And so Kat, who sits in the booth with the shades around her and the weird looking microphone, she's just there to make sure that everyone, you come down the 2 escalators at Parliament and you feel like you've descended into the mines of Moria. You're not that very keen to walk along the platform, so everyone banks up around the entrances and gets on the first carriage and the last carriage. So she's there to sort of get everyone flushing through the entirety of the train, which is there to use. You never know what you might find. It could be a pot of gold under a seat in the middle of the train. So we all serve a different purpose, and would you believe that the network is actually meticulously put together to cater to the differing peaks, the different clientele, the different people, the different conditions of every station and every train line.
Excellent. So there's a question as to whether you would ever consider changing teams and announcing for another station.
Not at this stage. Who's here from V-Line? Sorry. Right. No, I've got a long-standing relationship with Flinders that extends well beyond the time that I've worked there, so I'm very comfortable being there. It's quite an icon. I think sometimes you can become too familiar with your own environment and too familiar with your own city, and you lose a sense of romanticism for where it is that you live. And I'm from Wagga Wagga in New South Wales, and I always dreamed of being in a metropolitan area like Melbourne and exploring music, art and culture of a city like that. And being in Melbourne, like that building, which has stood there as long as it has, you know, which is a fraction of the time that many European buildings have been there for, which is a fraction of the time that, for instance, the birking trees in Western Victoria have been there for. It's still formidable. It still holds a romanticism for me. I don't get bored of walking through those arches every day. I don't get bored of standing on that platform. I don't get bored of watching the sun explode up over the Princess Bridge in the morning. I've got no intention of leaving. What are you offering?
So, speaking of icons, another icon in Australia is the Archibald Prize, and I understand that this year a portrait of you has been entered. Can you tell us more about that and what that experience has been like?
Like every customer service based labour job I have ever worked, the staff pool is riddled with an insane amount of talented people that you may not suspect have led a double life. I'm one of them. I'm a musician in Melbourne, play a lot of gigs. But another one of them is a fellow at Flinders Street Station called Andrew McLean. We got to know each other when I started working at Metro. We often found each other on the same barriers. And on platform 1, where the announcer stands, there's only one staff member that stands on the barriers there that leads straight down into Elizabeth Street. And Andrew, they don't put 2 staff there, it's just the one staff. So the announcer and the barrier staff there sort of tend to form a bit of a relationship. And I've done that with a few of the staff at Flinders, and I've formed one with Andrew. I think Andrew was a bit jack of me early on. I think, you know, for every person that gets off a train in Flinders, they hear that one quip of the day and you're like, oh, it's quite funny, wasn't that good? Andrew's got to sit there and listen to me go through my 6 quip roster that morning. Every 6 trains, a lot of trains come through that platform. But nevertheless, despite how much I did his head in, we developed quite a friendship, and then Voice of Flinders Station erupted. It blew up, and I was all over the news and all over social media. And Andrew used to be a tattoo artist, and I think he was figuring out what his next move artistically was going to be. He had his own Instagram page that was putting work out on. And then I blew up, and as you know, the Archibald Prize being one of the most prestigious art prizes in the country also comes with the caveat that it has to be of a notable public figure. There are only so many people in the world who know Sam Neill and Danny Minogue personally. And he saw his opportunity in that moment. It was just like, I've got my Archibald Prize entry. So he asked me whether I would be keen for it. He's very lucky he got in before 3 other friends that I've promised poses to for next year's Archibald Prize. So I dare say I might be somewhat of a staple over the next few years. I don't mind doing that because any opportunity to give an independent working artist in this country a shot at the title, you know, it's quite an honour to be selected for that. So I went for 3 sittings at Andrew's house in near Druin. And then he boxed it all up, sent it off to Sydney, fell off a roof, broke his foot, hasn't been back to work since. Yeah, I hope he's recovering well. I need to send him a text this afternoon actually. But yeah, I would love to see Andrew win the Archibald Prize. Nothing would give me greater pleasure than to see him just be rocketed up into the upper echelons of the art society in Australia.
So well, they say in Breakaway to be, you know, good luck. So hopefully that's good luck for him, and it's an amazing painting. I'd recommend checking it out. It's awesome. So hopefully this is less controversial than the question about the station. Do you have a favourite train line?
Whatever one gets me home. No, that's not fair. That's an interesting question. Do you know what I really liked about living in Surrey Hills years ago when I was at La Trobe Uni? I know it's actually obscene that I was living in the eastern suburbs and studying in the north. That was a hell of a commute. But honestly, there's a lot of walls and cutaways through the eastern lines, and I would get on at Chatham and go all the way to the city. And I actually really enjoyed watching, I don't endorse doing unsafe things on rail lines, but I did enjoy watching the changing, evolving graffiti work that was along the walls there. And there's some really amazing, elaborative artworks. But then I like travelling, up the Northern Line and the Sky Rail. You know, you're up in you get a really nice view. I mean, I live in Reservoir, and so I just sometimes go up there in the morning and see the sun comes out over the east, and then it just paints pink clouds over the west, and you're standing up there looking out over everything, right out into the western suburbs, out over the Moonee Valley. I don't really have a preference, but there are a lot of different aspects of the train network that I like.
Fantastic. So can you tell us about transport accessibility for those with physical challenges, just as you observe it?
Yeah, we've got I think there's one exit at Flinders that isn't serviced by an elevator, for instance. Obviously, over recent years, there's been a big push to, really overhaul the accessibility of all of the stations. I think Flinders is, for old infrastructure, it's quite well serviced, and obviously with the big build that's happening at the moment, you might have seen on the platforms at Flinders Street Station all the big blue boxes that are in the middle of the platforms. where the stairwells used to be, that you would walk into the underpass that would take you up to the Grave Street. So, you know, I think I'm proud to live in a city and work for a network and a system that has really taken it seriously, making accessibility a major issue. You might have seen some of the rubber additions to some of the platforms that close the gap between the train. That's also a dwell time thing. That's also to sort of hopefully get to a point eventually where drivers won't have to get out of the cab and then lay a ramp down for someone to roll their wheelchair over or their mover. And I think it's also important that we increase people's independence so they don't feel like they need that service. And when you're working with such old infrastructure that didn't have that built into the planning, and we've had lots of different models of trains come into the network over the years, it's hard to uniform that thing, but I think a lot of effort has been put into that, and I'm looking forward to watching that get developed further over the coming years.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for answering all of those questions. Flinders Station's never boring with you there, and I appreciate you joining us today. Thank you, Lauren.